Under the flickering light of a campfire, a small group of hunter-gatherers huddles together. The night is cold. The stars above are silent witnesses to what is about to unfold. At the center of the group stands a man, muscular, scarred, and confident. He has ruled by force. For years, his strength has kept rivals in check and secured his place as the group's leader. He has fought challengers, intimidated subordinates, and controlled access to food, shelter, and even mates. He is the alpha male. His authority is absolute, but nature does not stand still, and neither does society. Unbeknownst to him, the world has changed. Resources are becoming scarce. The climate is shifting. Danger now comes not from within, but from beyond. Rival groups, unpredictable weather, dwindling game. In this new reality, brute force is no longer enough. Around him, other men have begun to talk. Quietly, together, not with fists, but with ideas. They are less powerful physically, but they outnumber him. And now, they no longer fear him. What they seek is not dominance, but cooperation. What they value is not control, but contribution. Tonight, leadership changes form. The alpha male, once untouchable, is challenged not by violence, but by consensus. A collective choice is made. He may fight back, but one man cannot win against the group. A few stones fly. A decision is enforced. He falls, not by ambush, but by agreement. This is a turning point in human history. Power is no longer defined by muscle. Leadership is no longer permanent. The group doesn't follow the strongest, but the most useful. The hunter who can find food. The elder who knows where water hides. The one who can speak, persuade, and bring others together. From this moment forward, survival belongs not to the dominant, but to the cooperative, and the age of the alpha begins to fade. Part 2. Leadership in nature. Leadership is not unique to humans. It exists throughout the natural world, but it takes many forms. In the African savanna, hyenas organize around strict dominance hierarchies. The most dominant individual, often a powerful male or female depending on species, eats first, breeds first, and leads the group. Strength, aggression, and experience determine who rules. In the skies, the structure shifts. Migratory birds like geese take turns leading their V-shaped formations. The front position requires the most effort, breaking the wind for those behind. When the lead bird tires, another takes its place. Leadership is temporary, rotational, and based on endurance rather than dominance. In the oceans, a different model entirely. Orcas, or killer whales, live in tight matrilineal pods led by elder females. The oldest female, often past reproductive age, holds the knowledge of migration routes, hunting grounds, and survival strategies. The group follows her not because she is strongest, but because she knows the way. Then there are species where need, not strength, drives leadership. Take the three-spined stickleback, a small fish found in both fresh and saltwater. When a group searches for food, it is often the hungriest individual who leads, not by force, but by sheer urgency. Its need pushes it to move faster, search harder, and take more risks, unintentionally guiding the rest of the group. These patterns are not random. They show us that leadership in nature is highly adaptive. It evolves based on what the group needs to survive: protection, endurance, knowledge, or motivation. There is no single template. There is no fixed formula. The alpha male is just one strategy among many. Leadership in nature is not about status. It's about function. It is not about personality. It is about context. What works in one species or one environment may fail in another, and what elevates one leader today may be irrelevant tomorrow. In the natural world, leadership is not inherited. It is earned, adapted, and often replaced. And this variability tells us something essential. If we want to understand the evolution of human leadership, we must begin not with kings and generals, but with animals. Part 3. Our primate relatives. To understand the roots of human leadership, we don't need to look far. Our closest evolutionary relatives, the great apes, offer a living archive of how dominance, cooperation, and hierarchy take shape in complex social systems. Start with chimpanzees. They live in tightly knit, hierarchical communities where the alpha male reigns, but not by brute force alone. Yes, physical aggression plays a role. The dominant male often asserts power through intimidation and violence. But strength alone is not enough. To remain in power, the alpha must also manage alliances, perform social grooming, and resolve disputes. Political skill is just as important as muscle. A chimp who cannot maintain social bonds will quickly find himself challenged and possibly overthrown. In contrast, gorillas follow a simpler but equally rigid model. A group is led by a silverback male, named for the strip of silver hair that appears with age. He protects the group from threats, makes decisions on movement, and controls access to females. Younger males may challenge him, but often they simply leave and attempt to form their own groups. Leadership here is clear, singular, and defended with strength. Then there are bonobos, closely related to chimpanzees, but socially and behaviorally very different. Bonobo societies are matriarchal. Older females hold significant influence, and social harmony is maintained not through dominance, but through cooperation, grooming, and sexual bonding. Males often rise in status through their mothers, not through combat. Bonobos don't enforce strict hierarchies. Their communities are fluid, egalitarian, and unusually peaceful among primates. These three models, aggressive male dominance in chimps, centralized protection in gorillas, and female-led cooperation in bonobos, reveal something striking. Leadership among primates is not fixed. It is adaptable. It is shaped by social context and ecological needs. And that variability matters. It suggests that human leadership could have evolved in many possible directions, from control through fear to influence through trust, from hierarchy to consensus, from inherited power to earned respect. Our ancestors shared common ground with all three species, which means the human path was not inevitable. It was a result of pressures, choices, and adaptations across generations. In short, leadership in our primate lineage is not a straight line. It is a branching web of possibilities, some of which we still carry today. Part 4. Genes and environment. Is leadership inherited or learned? Modern genetic research suggests that certain personality traits associated with leadership, such as extroversion, decisiveness, and emotional resilience, may be influenced by specific gene variants. For example, the RS4950 gene has been linked to traits like assertiveness. Another, 5-HTTLPR, affects how individuals respond to stress, an essential factor in leadership under pressure. But let's be clear, there is no single leadership gene. These genetic factors may influence temperament or behavior, but they do not determine destiny. A person may carry traits that support leadership, but whether they ever lead depends on much more than biology. Environment matters. Children raised in cooperative, communicative environments often develop stronger social skills, emotional intelligence, and confidence, all traits that contribute to effective leadership. Conversely, those growing up in rigid or authoritarian settings may either mimic that style or reject leadership altogether. What this means is simple. Leadership is not fixed at birth. It is shaped by genes, yes, but more profoundly by context, culture, and opportunity. It is a layered interaction between biology and experience, between potential and development, between who we are and what we live through. And this complexity reinforces a larger point. Human leadership did not emerge from a genetic mutation alone. It arose from a dynamic process guided by both evolution and environment. Part 5. Traces of the ancient human. When we look into the deep past, beyond kings and tribes, beyond language and tools, we find only fragments, bones, teeth, and the faintest clues of how our ancestors lived. But even these fragments can speak volumes. Species like Sahelanthropus chidensis and Ardipithecus ramidus, dating from 6 to 7 million years ago, show a key pattern: minimal sexual dimorphism. Males and females had similar body sizes and canine teeth, unlike modern gorillas or chimpanzees, where large size and sharp teeth are tied to dominance and competition. This suggests early hominins may have lived in more cooperative social environments, with less male-to-male aggression and fewer battles for control. Later, with Homo neanderthalensis, Neanderthals, we find even clearer signs of a society built not on dominance but on care and connection. In Iraq's Shanidar cave, archaeologists uncovered the skeleton of a Neanderthal male who had suffered massive injuries: a crushed eye socket, a withered arm, and possible deafness. He lived for years in this state, long after such wounds would have made independent survival impossible. He was cared for, fed, protected. Someone ensured he stayed alive. In France, the old man of La Chapelle was buried with animal bones and tools, deliberately placed in a pit. Whether this was ritual, remembrance, or early symbolism, we don't know, but it wasn't random. It was an intentional act of community. Genetic studies of Neanderthal remains in Siberia also point to tightly bonded groups, often based on kinship. Males tended to stay within their birth group, while females moved between communities, a pattern still seen in some human cultures today. Taken together, these findings tell a consistent story. Early humans and their relatives were capable of empathy, cooperation, and care. They protected the vulnerable. They buried their dead. They lived in small, tightly knit groups where survival depended on one another. This social structure simply does not support the classic alpha male model. It reflects something different, something more human. Before there were kings, before there were warriors, there were communities, and at their heart was not dominance, but mutual dependence. Part 6, Homo erectus and the Power of Unity. Roughly 1.9 million years ago, a new species emerged, Homo erectus. They were taller, more mobile, and better adapted to varied environments than any hominin before them. They left Africa, crossed continents, and thrived for over 1.5 million years, a time span far exceeding our own species to date. Their survival was not an accident. It was a product of organization, cooperation, and shared knowledge. Archaeological evidence shows that Homo erectus created advanced stone tools, hand axes, cleavers, and cutting implements shaped with intent and precision. These tools were not randomly scattered, but found in repeated patterns, indicating group learning and cultural transmission. They hunted in groups, they coordinated, and most critically, they mastered fire. At sites like Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel and Jokodian in China, traces of burnt wood, charred bones, and ash layers suggest Homo erectus could control fire, a revolutionary step in human evolution. Fire provided warmth, protection, and the ability to cook food. It created social space where people gathered, planned, and perhaps began to tell the earliest stories. But fire and hunting don't happen without structure. The evidence suggests they may have practiced situational leadership, temporary leadership based on skill rather than status. The best tracker led the hunt. The most experienced elder taught tool-making. When the situation changed, so did the leader. This model would have increased group efficiency and survival. There is also reason to believe they cared for each other. A famous fossil from Dmanisi, Georgia, shows a Homo erectus individual who lived for years without teeth, implying others helped feed and support him. Survival, once again, depended on collective effort. In short, Homo erectus succeeded not because of one dominant figure, but because they functioned as a unit. Leadership was practical, temporary, earned through usefulness. And that simple idea, leadership through contribution, not control, may be one of the earliest foundations of human society. Part 7. Lessons from the Hadza and the San. Today, in the dry savannas of Tanzania and the vast plains of southern Africa, a few communities still live much as humans did for most of our history. The Hadza and the San are two of the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies on Earth. And in studying how they live, we can glimpse the foundations of leadership that once guided all human groups. First, there are no permanent chiefs, no kings, no centralized authority. Leadership in these societies is situational, fluid, and based entirely on skill and relevance. When the group prepares for a hunt, the best tracker leads. When a shelter needs building, the most experienced builder takes charge. When navigating unfamiliar terrain, the one who knows the landscape best becomes the guide. But once the task is done, so is the role. Leadership does not persist beyond its purpose. It is never inherited, it is never absolute. And when it comes to making decisions, power is collective. The Hadza gather in circles around the fire. Everyone speaks, everyone listens. There are disagreements, sometimes passionate, but the goal is consensus, not coercion. The San follows similar practices, with decisions emerging from long group discussions, often stretching into the night. What we see here is not a utopia, but a model of egalitarian organization born out of necessity. In a world where survival depends on shared effort and quick adaptation, rigid hierarchies are a liability. Food sources move, seasons shift, danger appears without warning. Under these conditions, only flexible, skill-based leadership can function effectively. And while modern Hadza and San communities are more advanced than early Homo sapiens, their structure likely echoes the logic that governed small bands of humans for hundreds of thousands of years. No alpha males, no crowns, only responsibility, temporarily assigned. This model offers a powerful reminder. Long before written laws, armies, or royalty, human leadership was built on knowledge, cooperation, and earned respect. And perhaps in that simplicity lies the original blueprint of what it meant to lead. Part 8. Language, the tool that reversed power. For most animals, power is physical. It's enforced through teeth, size, speed, and intimidation. But humans developed something different, something far more disruptive than muscle. The rise of language changed everything. It allowed early humans not just to communicate, but to debate, organize, and challenge authority. Words replaced weapons. Ideas replaced force. In earlier primate societies, the strongest ruled. The alpha male commanded through aggression. But in human groups, once language took hold, those without strength gained something even more powerful: the ability to conspire, persuade, and unite. A single voice may be weak, but 10 voices, aligned in purpose, can remove a tyrant. Anthropologists call this the reverse dominance hierarchy, a system where leaders are held in check by the collective. Language made this possible. It gave the powerless a platform and turned dominance into something that required constant negotiation, not just fear. But language was only part of the shift. It developed alongside the expansion of the human brain, specifically the neocortex, which handles reasoning, memory, and social intelligence. This cognitive leap made humans uniquely skilled at reading intentions, building alliances, and planning over time. It enabled the emergence of strategic leadership. No longer did leaders succeed by brute strength alone. Now, they needed to navigate relationships, manage group dynamics, and articulate shared goals. Leadership became more sophisticated, less about who could fight, and more about who could think, speak, and unify. In short, language leveled the playing field. It didn't just allow leadership, it redefined it. From dominance to dialogue, from obedience to consensus, from the rule of the strong to the rule of the strategic. Part 9. When villages and fields took root. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived as nomads. We moved with the seasons, followed migrating animals, and gathered what the land provided. Leadership was situational, temporary, earned, and often invisible. Then came agriculture. Roughly 12,000 years ago, something changed. Humans began to plant crops, domesticate animals, and settle in one place. This was more than a technological innovation. It was a social revolution. With farming came surplus, food that could be stored, guarded, and controlled. And with that surplus came a new question: who decides how it's distributed? The answer marked the birth of structured leadership. Those who managed irrigation, organized harvests, or protected food stores quickly became central figures. Leadership shifted from practical expertise to resource control. Power was no longer about hunting skill or tracking knowledge. It was about managing land, labor, and logistics. Villages grew into towns. Towns became city-states. And with them emerged something new in human history: social hierarchy. Archaeological evidence from early settlements like Çatalhöyük in modern-day Turkey shows signs of growing inequality. Some homes were larger, some graves held goods, beads, tools, carved ornaments, while others were bare. Wealth was no longer shared equally. It was inherited, guarded, and sometimes abused. The leaders of this new era were no longer chosen for a task. They were installed permanently, often passing their power to family members. Rulership began to look less like service and more like ownership. Agriculture didn't just feed more people. It redefined power, creating the first seeds of bureaucracy, property, taxation, and class. For the first time, humans lived not just under leaders, but under systems, and those systems would shape the course of civilization for millennia to come. Part 10. From Alpha to Emperor, from the firelit circles of the Hadza to the palaces of pharaohs and the rule of Qin Shi Huang, the arc of human leadership stretches across hundreds of thousands of years. But this journey is not a straight line. It is an evolution, shaped by environment, culture, and necessity. Early humans led by example: the best hunter, the sharpest navigator, the wisest elder. Each stepped forward when the moment called. When survival depended on adaptability, leadership was fluid, temporary, and earned. As communities grew and settled, new pressures emerged. The need to manage land, defend boundaries, store food, resolve disputes. Leadership hardened into something more permanent, a position, not just a role. The alpha male of prehistory gave way to kings, emperors, and bureaucrats. In Sumer, leadership was inscribed in clay. In Egypt, it was carved in stone. But beneath the crowns and titles, one truth remained: leadership is not fixed, it evolves. Each society shaped its leaders to meet its own challenges. Where brute force once worked, diplomacy became vital. Where lineage once mattered, merit sometimes prevailed. And where authority was absolute, resistance eventually rose. Even now, in the modern age, the question remains: what kind of leader do we need today? In a world of rapid change, climate instability, global conflict, technological disruption, the answer is not found in dominance, but in adaptability. The leaders who succeed are those who can listen, evolve, and unify. The path of leadership has never been about holding control. It has always been about understanding the moment and rising to meet it.